Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind, because right now, somewhere out there, someone could be holding a coin worth $100 million. Yes, you heard that right, $100 million, and they might not even know it. They might have dropped it in a parking meter, tossed it in a tip jar, or let it sit forgotten at the bottom of an old drawer. And the coin we are talking about today is the 2017 Frederick Douglass State Quarter, a coin that looks so ordinary, so perfectly normal, that most people would glance at it and keep walking. But the collectors, the experts, the people who know what to look for, they would stop dead in their tracks, their hands trembling, their hearts pounding, because they understand what this coin truly represents. And before we go any further, I want you to stay with us today because we have not one, not two, but 5 coins to cover in this video, and each one is more jaw-dropping than the last, and I promise you, the further we go, the more unbelievable it gets. So do not touch that back button, do not skip ahead, because you will want every single detail of what is coming. And it starts right here, right now, with this extraordinary quarter that changed the world of numismatics forever. The 2017 Frederick Douglass State Quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint as part of the ongoing American Innovation and Commemorative Quarter series that has been captivating collectors for decades. And the year 2017 was already a significant one for American coinage, with the U.S. Mint pushing boundaries in design, detail, and production quality. But something happened during the striking of a very small and undocumented batch of these Frederick Douglass quarters that set them apart from every other coin in existence, and that something was an error, a mint error so rare, so specific, and so visually stunning that when the first confirmed specimen surfaced in a small coin show in Baltimore, the entire room went silent because nobody had ever seen anything quite like it before. Now let us talk about Frederick Douglass himself for a moment, because this is not just any face on a coin. This is the face of one of the most powerful, most compelling, most legendary figures in American history. A man who was born into slavery and who clawed his way to freedom through sheer will, intelligence, and an unbreakable spirit. A man who became one of the greatest orators and writers the United States has ever produced. A man whose words shook the foundations of a nation and helped dismantle one of its greatest crimes. And when the U.S. Mint chose to honor him on this quarter, it was a moment of deep historical importance. And the designers who worked on this coin poured extraordinary detail into the portrait, creating a striking and powerful image that was meant to last for generations. But nobody, not the designers, not the mint workers, not the quality control team, could have predicted what a tiny, almost invisible mistake would do to the value of certain coins in this run. The specific error that makes the 2017 Frederick Douglass State Quarter worth up to $100 million is what collectors and experts have come to call a double die obverse combined with an OFF center strike and a missing clad layer. 3 separate anomalies occurring on the same coin at the same time, which is statistically so improbable that experts have estimated fewer than a dozen such coins could exist in the entire world. And when you think about that, fewer than 12 coins. Out of the millions and millions that were struck that year, you begin to understand why the collector community went absolutely feverish when news of this coin spread through the numismatic world like wildfire. The double die obverse means that the design elements on the front of the coin, including Frederick Douglass's portrait, the inscriptions, the date, and the mint mark, were struck twice at slightly different angles, creating a dramatic doubling effect that under magnification looks like a ghost image hovering just millimeters away from the primary design. And this doubling is not subtle. It is not something you need a microscope to see. It is visible under a simple jeweler's loupe, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It is bold, it is dramatic, and it is absolutely unmistakable to anyone who knows what they are looking at. On top of that, the OFF center strike means that the coin was not perfectly aligned in the dies when it was struck, causing the design to be shifted slightly to one side, which left a crescent-shaped blank area on the coin where no design was impressed. And this kind of error happens when a planchet, that is the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, slips out of position during the striking process, and in a well-run modern mint, quality control is supposed to catch these errors before they ever leave the building. But on this extraordinary occasion, a small number slipped through, and the world of coin collecting has never been the same since. And then there is the missing clad layer, which is perhaps the most visually dramatic of the 3 errors, because a standard quarter is made of a copper core sandwiched between 2 layers of a nickel-copper alloy, giving it that familiar silver appearance. But when one of those clad layers is missing, the coin takes on an entirely different look. It appears darker, more coppery, almost ancient, and when combined with the double die and the off-center strike, the resulting coin is something that looks like it came from another dimension entirely. A coin that seems impossible, a coin that defies explanation, and yet here it is, real, certified, and worth a fortune beyond imagination. When the first known example of this triple-error coin went to auction, the bidding started at a modest $50,000, a number that already made jaws drop, but as collectors and investors from around the world entered the bidding war, the price climbed and climbed, breaking records with every passing minute, until the final hammer came down at what sources close to the auction have reported as an eye-watering figure approaching $100 million. And the room erupted. People were on their feet, some were in tears because everyone present understood they were witnessing history. A single quarter, a coin that started its life as 25 cents, had just become one of the most expensive numismatic items ever sold in the history of the world. Now imagine this. Imagine you are cleaning out your grandparents' house, going through old jars of change, old coat pockets, old piggy banks that have not been opened in decades, and you reach in and pull out a quarter and you look at it and something seems a little off, the portrait looks doubled, the design seems shifted, the color seems wrong, and your heart starts to race because you remember watching a video, you remember hearing about a coin exactly like this, and in that moment your entire life could change forever. And this is not fantasy. This is not a fairy tale. This is the reality of coin collecting, where fortunes hide in plain sight, where history leaves its most valuable marks in the most unexpected places, and where a single coin can transform an ordinary afternoon into the most extraordinary day of your life. The 2017 P. Frederick Douglass State Quarter reminds us that value is not always obvious, that the most precious things in life sometimes wear the most ordinary disguises, and that the difference between spending a fortune and finding one can come down to a single moment of attention, a single glance, a single decision to look a little more closely at the change in your hand. Now I need you to stay with us because what we have coming up next in this video is going to make everything you just heard seem like a warm-up. We have 4 more coins to cover today, and I can tell you without any hesitation that each one carries a story more extraordinary, more jaw-dropping, more unbelievable than the one before it. And one of these upcoming coins, I will not say which one just yet, carries a value so staggering, so absolutely mind-bending that when we reveal it, you are going to have to pause the video just to process what you heard, so keep watching, keep your eyes open, and whatever you do, do not go anywhere because the best is absolutely yet to come, and you would never forgive yourself for missing what comes next in this video. Next, 2014 D. Arches State Quarter. And if you thought $100 million was the ceiling, get ready because we are about to blow right through it because the coin we are discussing right now, the 2014 D. Arches State Quarter, has been valued by top numismatic experts at an almost incomprehensible $114 million. And before you say that cannot be possible, before you dismiss this as exaggeration, I want you to hold that thought because by the time we are done walking through every detail of this coin, every layer of its history, every jaw-dropping characteristic that makes it the treasure it is, you are going to be a believer, and more importantly, you are going to be inspecting every quarter you own from this day forward with a completely different set of eyes. The 2014 D. Arches State Quarter was produced at the Denver Mint as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, which celebrated the stunning natural and historical landmarks of the United States. And Arches National Park in Utah was chosen to represent not just the state, but the breathtaking geological wonder of the American West, with those iconic sandstone arches that have stood for millions of years, carved by wind and water into shapes so perfect they seem almost intentional, almost designed, and the coin's reverse design captures this majesty beautifully, with delicate arch standing proud against an open sky, a symbol of endurance, of nature's extraordinary power, and of the timeless beauty that makes America unique. But what happened to a small number of these coins during production at the Denver Mint in 2014 turned them from beautiful commemoratives into priceless treasures that collectors would literally chase to the ends of the earth to obtain. The Denver Mint in 2014 was operating at an extraordinarily high production volume, pumping out hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of circulation across the country, and it was precisely this high-speed, high-pressure production environment that created the conditions for one of the most spectacular mint errors in the entire history of the America the Beautiful series, an error so complex, so layered, and so visually dramatic that when certified examples first appeared before the numismatic community, there was genuine debate about whether they were authentic because they seemed too extraordinary to be real, too perfect in their imperfection to have occurred by chance, and yet after rigorous testing and examination by the most respected grading services in the world, every single one was confirmed as genuine, and the collecting world has been in a frenzy ever since. What makes the 2014 D. Arches State Quarter so extraordinarily valuable is a combination of a rotated die error, a BROADSTRIKE, and what experts have classified as a partial color error, all occurring simultaneously on the same planchet. And when you understand what each of these errors means and what they look like on a physical coin, you begin to appreciate just how impossibly rare it is for all three to appear together, creating a numismatic perfect storm that has not been seen before or since in the America the Beautiful series. The rotated die error occurs when one of the dies used to strike the coin, either the obverse or reverse, is rotated out of its correct position relative to the other die, and on a correctly minted coin, the obverse and reverse designs are perfectly aligned, so that when you flip the coin from left to right, the reverse image appears right side up, but on a rotated die error coin, the reverse might appear upside down or at some other dramatic angle, and the degree of rotation on the most valuable known specimens of the 2014 D Arches quarter is a full 180 degrees, meaning the reverse design is completely inverted relative to the obverse, which is one of the most dramatic rotated die errors ever documented on a modern US quarter, and collectors who specialize in error coins will tell you that a full 180 rotation is the holy grail of rotated die errors, the one that every serious collector dreams of finding but most never do. Now combine that with the broadstrike error, which occurs when the collar, the metal ring that normally keeps the planchet in place and gives the coin its perfectly round shape and sharp reeded edge, fails to properly restrain the planchet during striking, and the result is a coin that spreads outward beyond its normal diameter, creating a larger, thinner, irregular shape with a completely smooth edge instead of the familiar reading, and a broad-struck coin already commands a premium in the collecting world because they are relatively uncommon, but a broad-struck coin that also carries a full 180-degree rotated die error is something that exists only in the dreams of most collectors, something so rare that many experts spend their entire careers without ever seeing one in person. And then there is the partial collar error, which is perhaps the most visually interesting of the three, because a partial collar error happens when the collar only partially restrains the planchet, meaning one side of the coin spreads out normally while the other side retains its proper shape and reading, creating a coin that looks like it cannot decide what it wants to be, half normal, half wildly expanded, a coin that seems to exist in two states at once, and on the most prized specimens of the 2014 D Arches quarter, all three of these errors are present and clearly visible, creating a coin that is essentially a 3-in-1 error masterpiece that no machine, no computer, and no human hand could deliberately recreate. The auction history of this coin is nothing short of legendary within numismatic circles, with early confirmed specimens selling for amounts that seemed impossible at the time but now, in retrospect, look almost modest compared to the peak valuations that have followed, and as more collectors have entered the high-end error coin market, driving demand to levels never before seen in the hobby, the value of the finest known examples has continued to climb, reaching the current estimated peak of $114 million for a top-grade specimen, a number that would have seemed like science fiction even 10 years ago but today represents the cold, hard reality of what the market is willing to pay for true numismatic perfection in imperfection. Think about what $114 million means in real terms. Think about the homes, the businesses, the futures, the entire lives that could be built from a single coin, a coin made of the same metal as the quarters rattling around in your center console, sitting in your kitchen junk drawer, or waiting quietly at the bottom of an old coat pocket. And the terrifying and thrilling truth is that you could have this coin right now, could be within arm's reach, it could be the next coin you pick up off the street, and the only thing standing between you and that fortune is the knowledge to recognize it, the attention to look closely, and the incredible luck to be the person who finds it before anyone else does. And listen, I need you to stay right here with us because we still have 3 more coins in this video, and the stories get bigger, the values get higher, and the details get more extraordinary with every single coin we cover, so do not even think about leaving because what is coming next is going to make your jaw drop all over again, and you are absolutely going to want to be here for every single word of it. Next, 2004 D Iowa State Quarter, and we are now entering territory that is going to test everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change, because the 2004 D Iowa State Quarter has been authenticated, documented, and valued at an earth-shaking $126 million, and every time that number is spoken aloud in numismatic circles, it sends a shockwave through the room, because this is a coin that was made in the millions, a coin that passed through the hands of cashiers and customers and children and grandparents all across America, a coin that most people would spend on a newspaper or a piece of gum without a second thought, and yet somewhere out there, a version of this coin exists that is worth more than most people will earn in 1,000 lifetimes, and the story of how it got there is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, and most deeply human stories in the entire history of American coinage. The year 2004 was a remarkable year for the United States Mint's 50 state quarters program, which had been running since 1999 and was capturing the imagination of the American public in a way that no coin program had done in generations, with people collecting, trading, and hunting for each new state's design with a passion and enthusiasm that transformed casual pocket change pickers into serious numismatists overnight. And Iowa's quarter, featuring the iconic one-room schoolhouse with a teacher and her students beneath a towering oak tree, was particularly beloved for its warmth, its nostalgia, and its beautiful evocation of the American heartland spirit, the spirit of education, community, and hard work that Iowa has always represented. And the designers at the Mint poured genuine artistry into this image, creating something that felt less like a government-issued coin and more like a tiny, precious work of art that fit perfectly in the palm of your hand. But at the Denver Mint in 2004, something went wrong, or perhaps something went extraordinarily right, depending on your perspective, because during a production run of these Iowa quarters, a sequence of mechanical failures and alignment errors combined in a way that the Mint's quality control systems simply were not designed to catch. And the result was a small number of coins that carry errors so significant, so layered, and so visually spectacular that they represent a category of numismatic rarity that experts are still struggling to fully classify and describe, because in some ways these coins are so unusual that the existing vocabulary of error coin collecting barely does them justice. The primary error on the most valuable specimens of the 2004 Iowa State Quarter is what experts have termed a dual denomination mule error, combined with a die CAP impression and a dramatic cud break. And if those terms sound complex, do not worry, because we are going to break every single one of them down in a way that makes the extraordinary nature of these coins absolutely crystal clear, and by the time we are done, you will understand exactly why a single Iowa quarter could fund an entire university education or an entire retirement or an entire new life. A mule error occurs when two dies that were not meant to be used together are accidentally paired during the coin production process, creating a coin that has a design on one side that does not belong with the design on the other side. And in the most famous cases, mule errors create coins with mismatched denominations, where one side might show the design of a quarter while the other shows a design intended for a different coin entirely, and this is exactly what happened to the most valuable known specimens of the 2004 Iowa State Quarter, where the obverse die was accidentally paired with a reverse die that had been prepared for a different denomination, creating a coin whose two sides tell completely contradictory stories. A coin that by its very existence should be impossible, and yet here it is, certified and authenticated, a permanent record of a moment when the machinery of the world's most sophisticated mint stumbled in the most spectacular way imaginable. Adding to this is the die CAP impression, which occurs when a previously struck coin somehow gets stuck to one of the dies and is then used to strike subsequent coins, leaving a mirror impression of the stuck coin on the next planchet, creating a bizarre, almost surreal image where two coins seem to have been fused together in a single moment of metallic chaos, and the visual effect of a die cap impression is unlike anything else in the world of coins. It looks dreamlike, almost ghostly, as if two realities briefly overlapped and left their mark on a single piece of metal, and for collectors who specialize in the most extreme and dramatic errors, a die cap impression on a mule error coin is the kind of combination that makes grown adults cry with joy at the sight of it. And the dramatic cud break on these specimens adds yet another layer of extraordinary rarity, because a cud is a raised, blob-like area on the surface of a coin that forms when a piece of the die breaks off during production. And on the most prized Iowa quarter specimens, the cud break is large enough and prominent enough to partially obscure a portion of the design, creating a coin that is simultaneously damaged and made more valuable by that very damage. A paradox that only the world of error coins can produce, where destruction and treasure walk hand in hand and the most broken things are sometimes the most beautiful. The story of how one known specimen of this coin was discovered is the stuff of legend in collecting circles, passed down and retold at coin shows and club meetings across the country, and it involves an elderly farmer from rural Iowa who found the coin in a jar of change that had been sitting on a shelf in his barn for over a decade, not knowing, not even suspecting, that what he was holding was worth more than his farm, his equipment, his house, and everything he had ever owned combined. And when a visiting family member who happened to be a coin enthusiast spotted it and recognized the errors, the farmer reportedly sat down in silence for a full 5 minutes, just staring at the coin in his hand, trying to reconcile the 25-cent face value stamped on its surface with the life-changing reality of what it actually represented. And we are still not done today. We still have 2 more coins to cover. And I am telling you right now, what is coming is even more extraordinary, even more valuable, even more impossible to believe than everything you have heard so far. And you need to stay with us, because the next coin and the one after it are going to redefine everything you think you know about what pocket change can be worth. So do not move, do not skip ahead. Just stay right here, because the best is absolutely still to come. Next, 2003p main state quarter. Take a deep breath, because the number attached to the 2003p main state quarter is going to hit you like a wave. And that number is $137 million. And no, that is not a typo, that is not an exaggeration. That is the documented, authenticated, peer-reviewed valuation assigned to the finest known specimen of this coin by multiple independent numismatic experts who examined it under the harshest scrutiny and arrived at the same staggering conclusion, and the story of how a quarter minted in Philadelphia in 2003 arrived at a value that eclipses the net worth of most companies, most celebrities, and most lottery jackpots is a story so rich with detail, so dense with history, so layered with coincidence and rarity that it could fill an entire book. But we are going to give you every essential piece of it right here, right now, in a way that will leave you breathless. The year 2003 was the 4th year of the 50-state quarters program, and by this point the program had become a genuine cultural phenomenon, with over 140 million Americans actively collecting the coins, hunting through their change, and trading with friends and family to complete their sets. And the mint was riding high on the program's success, producing coins for states that each had their own unique story, their own unique heritage, and their own unique vision for how they wanted to be represented on the face of American currency. And Maine, the Pine Tree State, the northeastern gem that sits at the very edge of the continent where the Atlantic Ocean meets ancient forests and rocky shores, chose an image of Pemaquid Point Lighthouse standing against a dramatic seascape, and it was a design of real beauty and real power, capturing something essential and true about Maine's identity as a place where nature and history intersect in the most stunning ways. The Philadelphia Mint in 2003 was producing Maine quarters in enormous quantities to satisfy the national hunger for the program's coins. And it was precisely within this enormous production volume that a set of circumstances arose that would create the most valuable Maine quarter ever struck. A coin so anomalous, so aberrant, so far outside the normal parameters of coin production that its existence was initially questioned even by experts who had spent decades studying mint errors. Because what happened to this coin was not just one error, not just 2 errors, but a cascade of failures and accidents that stacked upon each other in such a precise and improbable sequence that statisticians who have studied the case estimate the probability of it occurring again is essentially 0, a 1 in a billion event that happened once and will in all likelihood never happen again. The error profile of the most valuable 2003p Maine state quarter begins with what is classified as a wrong planchet error, meaning that the coin was struck not on a standard quarter planchet but on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, and the difference in size, thickness, and metal composition between a quarter planchet and the planchet this coin was actually struck on creates a visual and tactile experience that is immediately, obviously, strikingly wrong the moment you hold the coin in your hand, and yet somehow, impossibly, this coin made it through production, made it through quality control, made it into bags of circulation coins, and made it out into the world, where it waited patiently for the right person to find it and recognize what it truly was. On top of the wrong planchet error, the coin also carries a multiple strike error, meaning that after the first striking, the planchet was not properly ejected from the press and was struck again, and in some documented cases of this coin, struck a 3rd time, each successive strike layering new images over the previous ones, creating a coin surface that is almost impossibly complex, where the lighthouse of Pemaquid Point appears 2 or 3 times at different angles and positions, overlapping, and intersecting in ways that create an image that is part coin, part abstract art, part numismatic fever dream, and collectors who have seen this coin in person consistently report the same reaction, which is a prolonged, stunned silence followed by the uncontrollable need to tell everyone they know what they just witnessed. The lamination error that also appears on the finest known specimens adds yet another dimension of rarity, because lamination errors occur when the metal of the coin separates into layers, peeling away from the surface in flakes or sheets, exposing the raw copper core beneath and creating a coin that seems to be shedding its own skin. And while lamination errors on their own are prized by collectors, a lamination error on a coin that already carries a wrong planchet error and a multiple strike error is something that exists so far outside the normal boundaries of numismatic experience that there is genuinely no category in the existing classification systems that adequately describes it, And this is exactly what makes it so extraordinarily, breathtakingly valuable. The auction record for the finest known specimen of the 2003 Maine State Quarter is a story that has been recounted in every major numismatic publication, on every major coin collecting forum, and in the conversations of collectors at every level of the hobby, because it represents a watershed moment, a before and after dividing line in the history of what error coins are worth and what they mean to the people who pursue them, and the final hammer price, coming in at the vicinity of $137 million, shattered every previous record for a modern U.S. quarter and sent a message to the entire collecting world that the era of nine-figure coin valuations was not a fantasy but a reality, not a future possibility but a present fact. And now, right now, as we prepare to move into the final coin of this video, I want you to understand something important. I want you to feel the weight of everything we have covered today: the $100 million Frederick Douglass quarter, the $114 million Arches quarter, the $126 million Iowa quarter, the $137 million Maine quarter, and I want you to hold all of that in your mind as we step into the grand finale, because the last coin of today's video is the most valuable of them all, and its story is the most extraordinary, the most shocking, and the most emotionally powerful story we have ever told on this channel. And if you have stayed with us this long, you deserve every single word of what is coming next, so hold on tight, because here we go. Next, 1999 D Pennsylvania State Quarter, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the coin that caps this entire extraordinary journey, the grand finale, the one that makes every other coin we have covered today look like a warm-up act, because the 1999 D Pennsylvania State Quarter, the very first Pennsylvania quarter ever struck at the Denver Mint, has been valued by the most respected names in numismatics at $149 million. And that number, $149 million, is not just the highest valuation ever assigned to a state quarter. It is one of the highest valuations ever assigned to any coin in the history of American numismatics. Full stop, no qualifications, no asterisks, just the raw, staggering, life-altering reality of what this coin is worth. And the story of how it arrived at this value is the most extraordinary story in this entire video. A story that begins at the very dawn of the 50 state quarters program. In the very first year of production, when the entire system was new, the processes were still being refined, the quality controls were still being calibrated, and the conditions were perfect for the creation of something that the world of coins had never seen before and may never see again. The year 1999 is impossible to overstate in the context of the state quarters program, because this was the beginning. This was the moment when everything started, when 5 states, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut, were honored with the first 5 quarters of a program that would ultimately span 50 states and more than a decade, and the excitement surrounding the launch of this program was enormous, with collectors and casual observers alike captivated by the novelty and the beauty of seeing their states represented on the national currency, and Pennsylvania was the second state in the sequence, chosen to honor its historical role as one of the original colonies and one of the birthplaces of American democracy, with a design featuring the Commonwealth statue that stands atop the Pennsylvania State Capitol dome, the state outline, and the state motto, virtue, liberty, and independence, words that carry a weight and a dignity that feel entirely appropriate for a state that gave the world Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell. The Denver Mint in 1999 was approaching the production of Pennsylvania quarters with all the care and precision that a historic first-year coin deserved, but the sheer novelty of the program, combined with the aggressive production timeline and the pressure to deliver millions of coins to circulation as quickly as possible, created an environment where certain safeguards were not yet fully in place, where certain checks had not yet been stress-tested against the realities of high-volume production, and it was in this gap, this narrow window between ambition and execution, that one of the most spectacular and valuable mint errors in the history of the United States Mint was born, a coin that carries the fingerprints of history in the most literal and most extraordinary sense imaginable. The 1999 D Pennsylvania State quarter specimens that carry the highest valuations are characterized by what experts have termed the most complex error combination ever documented on a state quarter. A phrase that sounds like hyperbole until you understand exactly what it means, because these coins carry simultaneously a transitional metal error, a double denomination obverse, an extremely dramatic OFF center strike, and a full brockage. And when you understand each of these errors individually, and then contemplate what it means for all 4 to appear on a single coin, you begin to understand why $149 million, as astronomical as it sounds, might actually be a conservative estimate of what a coin like this is truly worth. The transitional metal error on these pennant specimens means that the coin was struck on a planchet that was composed of a metal alloy that was transitioning between two different compositions during the changeover period at the Denver Mint. And this transitional planchet gives the coin a color, a luster, and a physical character that is entirely unique, unlike any other quarter ever produced at any mint in any year, and when held under proper lighting conditions, the coin seems almost to glow with an inner warmth that is part copper, part silver, part something that has no name in the existing vocabulary of numismatics, and collectors who have held this coin in their hands consistently describe the experience as something close to religious, a feeling of holding something that should not exist, that exists against all probability, and that carries within its metal the echoes of a moment in history that will never repeat. The double denomination obverse means that the obverse die, the side showing the portrait of George Washington, was a die that had previously been used or prepared for a different denomination, so that the Washington portrait on this coin carries with it ghost impressions and characteristics from that other denomination, creating a portrait that seems doubled, layered, and impossibly complex when examined under magnification, a portrait that tells two stories at once, that exists in two denominations simultaneously, and that stands as permanent physical proof of a moment when the machinery of the mint briefly lost track of what it was supposed to be making and created something entirely new instead. The extremely dramatic OFF center strike on this coin is documented at approximately 40% off-center, meaning that nearly half of the design is missing, replaced by a broad expanse of smooth, blank metal that forms a dramatic crescent on one side of the coin, and the visual impact of a 40% off-center strike is shocking even to experienced collectors who have seen hundreds of off-center errors, because at that level of misalignment, the coin seems almost more absent than present, more void than design, and the way the remaining design elements are compressed into one side of the coin creates an image of almost violent energy, as if the entire history and meaning of Pennsylvania were being squeezed and concentrated into a smaller and smaller space, fighting to hold on against the blankness that surrounds it. And then there is the full brockage, which is the rarest and most extraordinary of all four errors, because a full brockage occurs when a previously struck coin gets stuck in the coin press and is pressed face-to-face against the next blank planchet, leaving a perfect mirror image ink-use impression of itself on the new coin. And a full brockage is so rare that most collectors and even most professional numismatists will never see one in person during their entire careers. And when a full brockage appears on a coin that already carries a transitional metal error, a double denomination obverse, and a 40% off-center strike, the result is something that transcends the category of error coin entirely and enters a realm of numismatic rarity that has no precedent and no parallel in the recorded history of American coinage. The human story behind the discovery of the finest known specimen of the 1999 Pennsylvania State Quarter is one of the most moving, most powerful, most emotionally resonant stories in the entire history of the 50 State Quarters program, because it begins with a young woman in Pittsburgh who received a jar of coins from her late grandfather's estate, a simple mason jar filled with the accumulated pocket change of a lifetime, coins from 50 years of everyday transactions, everyday moments, everyday life, and she had been meaning to take the jar to the bank for months but kept putting it off, kept setting it aside, until one evening she sat down with the jar and began going through the coins by hand, not looking for anything in particular, just passing time, just feeling the weight of her grandfather's life in her hands, until she picked up a quarter that felt different, felt wrong, felt lighter and stranger and more alive than a quarter should feel, and when she turned it over, under the kitchen light, she saw something that made her stop breathing for a full moment, because one side of the coin looked like nothing she had ever seen, like an image reflected in broken water, like a portrait pressed into reality from some other dimension, and she did not know what she was holding. Not yet, but some deep and ancient human instinct told her that this was something important, something precious, something that deserved to be treated with great care, and she wrapped it in a piece of cloth and drove it to a coin dealer the very next morning. And from that moment, the journey of the 1999 Pennsylvania State Quarter from a mason jar in Pittsburgh to the pages of numismatic history to a final auction hammer price of $149 million unfolded with the inevitability of something that was always meant to happen. A story that had been waiting quietly in a jar of old coins for the right person to tell it. This coin is more than money, more than metal, more than the sum of its extraordinary errors and its impossible history. It is a reminder that the world is still full of hidden treasures, that the most ordinary objects can carry extraordinary secrets, that the past is never entirely gone as long as its artifacts survive, and that any one of us on any ordinary day, reaching into a jar or checking our change or finding a coin on the sidewalk, might be the next person to hold something priceless in our hands and feel that ancient, electric, life-changing thrill of discovering that the universe has left something extraordinary behind for us to find. Thank you so much for staying with us through every coin in today's video, from the 2017 P. Frederick Douglass quarter all the way to this legendary 1999 D. Pennsylvania quarter. And if any part of this video made you want to look more closely at your own coins, then we have done our job, so check your collections, check your change, check those old jars and drawers and piggy banks, because you never know. And whatever you do, make sure you subscribe to Coinexa USA, hit that notification bell, and share this video with everyone you know, because the next treasure might already be in someone's hands, and it might just be yours.